Hey guys, Scott here. Today I want to talk about the Dredge, and I made a video about like final impressions on him, but I guess I have even more finaler impressions now. He's not as good as I thought he was. I thought he was like sort of like a high B tier killer, but as I play him more and more, especially against better survivors, I'm starting to realize that he's actually not that good. He's definitely not a bad killer by any means. There are far worse killers than him, but he's actually not that good, and that's kind of sad because I thought he was actually better than he actually is. And the main reason for that, well, there's a couple of reasons, but one of the main reasons is the counter to his power. The counter to the whole remnant thing is just running to different tiles. So if he sets up a remnant, instead of looping back into it, eventually you just connect it to something else. And then that's, going to basically completely counter him because he's going to slow down as he's channeling his remnant. So you'll gain distance. And then as long as you have two connected loops, you can just keep going back and forth between them. The only time the power really shines is when you're in like a corner of the map and he can set a remnant in the only path that you have to access the rest of the map. In that regard, yeah, you're pretty much screwed. But it's not very common that you get somebody stuck in a corner of the map. And to be fair, most killers are going to be very strong in that scenario. His power to me, if you've ever tried playing this, it feels like playing Hag, but you don't preset any traps. You just play Hag, but every trap you set is a trap you set in mid-chase. And if you've ever tried playing like that, it is possible, but it's extremely difficult to actually do. And a lot of the times when you're setting traps down, people will just simply leave and run to a different loop. Now, the upside to doing that with Hag is now for later, it's set up. So if someone comes back to that loop, you are going to be able to get a hit on them. But this doesn't really work for this killer as well. It's also sort of like the artist in terms of playstyle, where you set down a remnant, in an area in an effort to get them to loop back into it, so you can either launch the crow or reset back to your remnant and then be able to hit them. Also, like artists' crows, you can run into them to dismantle the remnant and also dismantle the crows. But if you run into the crows, you still get the crows on you, and now she can do a wall-piercing shot. So even in that scenario, artist does that better. Hag does the other style better because at the very least, she's going to have the ability to have those traps remain there. So he doesn't really do better in either of those scenarios, and he's still slowed down while he's channeling it. So the remnant power, with the way DBD's map design is now going, is not super effective because a lot of these new maps are being made with not super strong structures, but a lot of kind of not that great loops, but they're all connected together, which is like the complete definition of how to counter this killer. So the only way you can really use this power successfully is when they're like in a corner and have no other options. Otherwise, they can just sort of connect a bunch of loops together. And that's just the way that DVD map design is in 2022. That's how they're making maps now. A lot of loops connected together. And so that it's funny, the Garden of Joy is like the king of that. There are so many palettes that are not that great, but they're all connected to each other. And that completely counters his power. So his own map is really bad. Additionally, like Garden of Joy as well, locker placements are, it makes the killer very reliant on RNG. And I don't like that. I don't like when a killer is based on the luck of the map generation, having gens not spawn near lockers and things like that. It can be very, very rough. And it's just not great having a power rely on just complete RNG. So you could have a map like Pale Rose where you just don't have lockers anywhere and you're just basically fucked. There's nowhere to teleport at all. But then you could have maps like Midwich where it's actually a lot of very good teleports and basically every generator is near a locker of some kind. So it's very, very luck based, and I'm not a huge fan of that as well. Additionally, Nightfall. Nightfall I find to be not that useful. I think its usefulness is very overrated, I think. And I say this as someone that's been going against a lot of Dredge too. I don't find it disorienting that much. There's a couple of maps that for some reason have a lot darker ambient lighting, like on Autohaven, for example. It's actually pretty dark. But for the most part, I don't really find it very threatening. One, for not knowing where he is, he glows at a distance, so you can actually see him easier sometimes. Also, he's like the loudest killer in the game in terms of ambient sounds. He is extremely loud, so you can pinpoint exactly where he is without being able to see him. Even if he has no tear radius or anything like that, you can track him through walls perfectly because his ambient sounds are so incredibly loud, and it doesn't matter. So if I'm looping the killer, it doesn't really affect me at all because I can just hear exactly where he is. And so that makes Nightfall not particularly useful. Now, the increased teleport speed is really, really nice for map control, but like I said, because most lockers are locked, I don't really ever get a chance to use it mid-chase as a way to down somebody. It's just a way to get around the map a lot faster, which is still nice, but if that's his ultimate power to get around a bit faster, it's just not, it's a bit whelming. So I don't find Nightfall to be that scary either. Again, it depends on the map. On a map like Eyrie of Crows, for example, it actually doesn't do anything. It's another RNG aspect to the killer that I don't like. For some reason, like the lighting of the map itself determines how effective Nightfall is. Like if you've ever seen this on even Ormond or Eyrie of Crows or whatever, it doesn't do anything. It's very, very like minimal what the actual effect is. But then on a map like Shelter Woods or something, yeah, it's actually very, very dark. It actually can be a bit disorienting if you're trying to like chain together loops. So that's another aspect of it that's RNG based, and I don't like all these killers that are dependent on things outside of my control. Other than that, yeah, he just sort of has like a weaker hag artist kind of play style outside of Nightfall, and then even inside Nightfall, it's still kind of affected by lockers being locked and then cutting you off from the actual chase, and then you end up losing more distance than you would have gained just simply running forward. And all these reasons, I have determined he's not as good as I thought he would be. I think aesthetically, they still knocked it out of the park. He's probably like the coolest killer in the game, but playing him against good teams does not feel good ever. It feels really bad. Whereas, you know, even if I'm playing a killer like Demogorgon, who's by no means top tier, I still feel like I can down people, and I still feel like I can do a lot. Another thing about this killer that I forgot to mention is he doesn't really have any snowball potential. Whereas, you know, a killer like Hunters can down multiple people really, really fast. Even Hag with the proper setup can down people really, really fast if she's got the traps in the right areas. But this killer can't do that. He just has to set a Remnant, get them to loop into it, hit, and then chase, wait, set a Remnant, teleport, hit. Like he has no way to quickly get hits. So it's very hard for this killer to snowball. And you can't really play him like a hit and run killer because it's not Wraith, where it's actually easy to get a hit on him because he can sneak up on you. You can't sneak up on anybody with this killer, really. The only time that's possible is if you're at a generator with a locker right behind you and you don't have ears and the locker's not locked. That's the only time he can actually get the jump on somebody. Whereas Wraith can just sneak up on you and just slap you. So that's why hit and run on Wraith is actually pretty decent. On this killer, he's extremely loud. It's just very, very hard to actually get that to happen. So for all those reasons, I got to say that he's not super, super great. Playing him against good players does not feel good at all. And any killer that I feel like kind of gets destroyed by good players, I'm not a huge fan of. So that's pretty much it. Those are finaler thoughts on the Dredge. Curious to hear what you guys think about it after playing him more. Maybe I'm missing some advanced thing or something, but it doesn't seem too complicated. So I don't think I am, but maybe I am. So let me guys know. And that's it. Thanks for watching.